Hello and welcome to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. I'm Anthony Pyne and I'm very happy to be joined by Paul, Corry and Richie Towell to look back on an eventful weekend of Premier Division action. We'll also be joined in a little bit by Rachel Graham to discuss domestic affairs in the Women's League of Ireland and look ahead to Ireland's Nations League game against Greece on Friday afternoon. First though, St. Pat's are top after a morale boosting and momentum building win at Waterford thanks to two late goals, Dara Leahy OG and a fine free kick from Brandon Kavanagh. So let's start there, Richie. If you're going to win a league, you're probably going to have a few moments like Pat's enjoyed at the RSC, on Friday night. What did you make of it? Where do you stand on Pat's so far from what you've seen?
Yeah, look, Pats have had a great start to the season, and I know probably after a game or two, people are kind of probably questioning, oh, will they be able to continue on the form from last season, because they finished like a steam train they did. So for them to have picked up really where they left off last season is credit to them, you know. And with a manager like Stephen Kenny there, he's going to instill a real confidence and belief in the players, and you can see that by when they're playing against Waterford and it gets to the 90th minute, and that's when they get their winner, because Stephen Kenny's teams are kind of notorious for that, to keep fighting until the end. And I think when you have the quality like Brandon Kavanagh has with free kicks and from set plays, they're always going to be a threat for the whole game. So yeah, look, it was a great win from St. Patrick's athletic point of view, and they'll be really happy with that, because the other teams they're kind of pulling away already a little bit. I think they're 5 or 6 points clear from Shamrock Rovers already. So if that gap keeps creating, then it's going to be really tough to claw back for other teams. Like,
You've been there in terms of winning a league. Like, do you get a sense early in the season if you get a result like that, or in the nature of that kind of win, that something's happening here? This is actually this could be us this year. This could be our season to go and win it.
Yeah, especially when little things seem to be going your way. Like obviously, Waterford probably felt they were in control of the game, and then they score an own goal, and all of a sudden the game gets flipped on its head. And as I said, with moments of quality and brilliance from Brandon Kavanagh and players like Chris Forrester and Aidan Keenan, they have that quality and depth in the team that they can rely on individual players as well to get them out of trouble. And as you said, sometimes when it's going right for you, it's always at the right end of the league as well. Sometimes when you're fighting relegation, them little half bounces go the other way, and the ball doesn't go in the back of the net. But St. Pat's seem to have real momentum, and I think as everybody knows in football, momentum is a massive thing, and I'm sure they're itching for the next game now. They'll be on such a high going into training all week, and they'll be really excited for the next game, and no better game to be excited for, because it's a really big one.
What's your take on Pat's ball? Like, the way they finished the season, everyone's kind of expecting them to maintain that kind of form. It hasn't been sparkling right from the off, but I guess it doesn't really matter at this point. They're top. They got a few tricky games out of the way, points on the board. Would you still fancy them to go very close, if not all the way this year?
Yeah, I do. And if they don't win the league this year, I really fancy them to win it next year. They just feel like they're growing. And to Richie's points, like they finished the season like a steam train was a good way of putting it, because they just seem to be wiping teams every week. It doesn't feel as if they've gotten into that flow just yet, Anthony. It feels like they're maybe limping over the line in different games, but what they do have is so many match winners within the team. And it was Brandon Kavanagh last week. They've Jake Mulroney, El Bazzetti, Mason Melia, Chris Forrester. They just have so many match winners that they probably don't need to be at their brilliant best, because they've got individuals who can kind of pop up with moments of magics and get you over the line. I think it's only going to be a matter of time before they fully click into gear. I think Jamie Lennon come back from injury is really important, just to give them that bit of steel shield in the back four, and just giving that little bit more protection to try get you a few more clean sheets. And also Sean Hoare will come into that squad and give great experience to a back four at the different moments when he's needed. So they're not at the same sort of, or they don't seem to have the same sort of quality and performance that they did at the tail end of last season. But I think it's coming, Anthony, and they're the side that I expect to take off and kind of put back-to-back results together. And I think when they do, they're certainly going to be the team that others are going to have to keep up with, because of the points that I've made, the strength and depth and just the individual brilliance that they have throughout the squad.
There was a big game in Tala that probably didn't take off either for a couple of different reasons. Shamrock Rovers and Derry. Paul, did you see a title challenger in that game? One or two or none? Or what do you think?
I certainly think Shamrock Rovers will be in the conversation. They typically find ways of, even when they're not playing brilliant, to get enough points to put them in the conversation of contending for trophies. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that I think there's been a significant drop off from the heights that we've seen Shamrock Rovers hit over, different campaigns when they've qualified for Europe or won the league by a significant number of points. They just don't have the same sort of threat going forward that they have in previous years. You can see that the legs from a Farouja or Darragh Burns is really lacking when they go forward. They don't carry the same sort of threat, and they've only scored more than one goal, I think, in one fixture this year. So the signs are there, Anthony, that they don't carry the same threat. It was a lot of pressure to put on Noonan. I always expected him to kind of be dripped in and pulled out, because it's just such a huge expectation for a 16-year-old to lead the line. And how long can you continue to rely on the likes of Rory Gaffney, who played so few games last year? Aaron Green has been around for a long period of time, but isn't really that consistent goal scorer. He's very good at linking the play and being dogged out of possession. So if Berkey isn't scoring goals, I just don't see where they're going to come from. I can't see them carrying the same sort of threat that, say, St. Pat's do. And that would be my worry for them, that, the players just aren't there in the final third. Now, I could be wrong, and they could get it to click again. Danny Mandrew will come back from injury. Maybe Jack Byrne will find a level that we haven't really seen him hit over the last 18 months. But as an outfit, the Shamrock Rovers even of last year aren't the Shamrock Rovers of this year in my eyes.
Richie, you've been in Shamrock Rovers teams that have maybe started seasons slowly. Like Stephen Bradley's very relaxed. He's the demeanour of a man who's won multiple titles. He knows what it's all about. Do you see a kick in them? Do you think that they're okay? They're just sitting on the shoulder and it will gel and click for them at some point?
Yeah, you know what? From the outside, he does look relaxed, but I know deep down and what he would be like in the dressing room and on the training pitch, I know he'll be really adamant on the lads getting to a specific performance level. Obviously, results can depend on many different factors. They can, but it's that performance level. And just to touch on what Paul said, I don't think they're actually reaching that performance level that he would have wanted so far. And like that, if you're not scoring goals, it's going to be really, really hard to win games. Obviously, they have got the experience of having the likes of Dan Cleary, Lee Grace, Roberto Lopez in that defence. So they have that solid foundation there, they do. But if you're not going up the other end and scoring goals, it's going to be really difficult to win a title. Like, yeah, they can get through games at the moment, and that's what they're probably hoping on, to get through games, get a couple of results on the board, and then wait for the likes of Danny Mandrew, Jack Byrne, and see if you can kind of get them on the pitch at the same time. Because let's be realistic, like with goals and assists between them two, that probably would be the difference between them finishing second or third and going on and winning the league. And they'll be really hopeful that they can get them back, and not just get them back, but get them to a level of performance that can really kick them on it.
What about Derry, Richie? Like, there's an expectation, given the business they did over the course of the winter, that they really have to challenge this year. They certainly will be expected by a lot of people to be right up there. Hasn't quite clicked for them yet. I guess they'll point to Danny Mullen's red card, which did look soft, but also when Ed McGinty went off, they didn't really assert themselves in the game. It was almost like they weren't sure how to approach it then, because they had to change their game plan. Now suddenly they had a lot of football. Like what have you made of them so far? Are you expecting more? Do you think more is going to come?
Yeah, do you know what? I've actually been really critical of Derry, especially at the start of the season. I went to watch them play against Shells at Tolka Park, and they were really disappointing. But it was always going to take time. Now, I know Tiernan Lynch, and I know we've said it before, he hasn't signed potential players. He's signed lads that have been around the block and been there and done it. So they will want to hit the ground running, which they haven't done so far. But probably over the last couple of weeks, he's probably seen little glimpses of where Derry City can actually go. And I actually think they were really unlucky with, I know Shamrock Rovers got a man sent off, and Derry probably felt like they were going to go into the ascendancy, especially into the second half, as Rovers would have got a little bit more tired with having the man less, and then they go and get the man sent off. And it was really harsh. I never thought it was a sending off. I thought it was really disappointing. It kind of ruined the game for Derry. It did. They would have had a little bit of time at half time to change things around, and for Tiernan Lynch to get his point of view across. As you said, they probably weren't used to having so much of the ball against Shamrock Rovers away from home, so they would have been able to tweak things a little bit at half time. So they'll be really disappointed, because they could have got back-to-back wins, and that would have really put them in a good position for going forward.
What do you make of them, Paul?
Yeah, listen, I think Tiernan Lynch would just be delighted, Anthony, that they're unbeaten in the last three games. A draw at home to Galway, a win on the road to Sligo, and then a point at Shamrock Rovers. And I think that will give them a little bit more stability after losing at home to Waterford and then being beaten by Pat. So it gives them a little bit of a foundation to build on. But I think we're all just waiting to see maybe after the first round of games where Derry are at because of the players that they brought into the building. What sort of levels they're going to be able to hit, what style of player they're going to play under Tiernan Lynch compared to what they did under Rory Higgins. And there's probably still a lot of questions there, Anthony, that we don't have answers to. Going back to Friday's game, and I agree with Richie, like it's a soft second yellow. But if you're Tiernan Lynch, you're on the sideline, you're saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Like just don't give Paul McLaughlin any sort of decision there to make to give you a second yellow card, because we know it's almost in referees' instincts to level things up if they've sent a player off. So I thought it was quite naive. It was very much a centre forwards tackle. Aaron Green was going absolutely nowhere with the ball. Just let him carry it on, regain possession, get to half time, regroup, come out with a game plan, and take it to Shamrock Rovers in the second half. And that yellow card then evens things out again. And you're probably in a situation where you're happy enough to get out of Tala with a point, whereas 3 points on the road there could have been that big result that Tiernan Lynch needed to kind of kickstart things and get them moving in the right direction. So we'll wait and see. They've still obviously got a lot of quality, a huge amount of experience within that squad as well, of particularly the cohort who were at Dundalk and won so many titles. And there's obviously players who've come back from the UK. So it's still a situation where we're waiting to see with Derry. I wouldn't be surprised if they found another level or two. Whether or not that level or two is going to be enough to push for a title, I probably don't think so.
Over at Sligo, Richie, the reigning champions dug out a good win. One of the sort of features of the early in the season is the pitches haven't been great. Some of the pitches, it wasn't a great pitch over there, but they won. Another 3 points on the board. Wasn't very pretty, but they did it. We'll just ask you about the Sligo red card. King Kavanagh's red on a weekend of a few controversial decisions. Was that a red for you?
No, I didn't think so, to be honest. But I think that's like, we go back to it's always a refereeing decision. Every single week we're kind of talking about a refereeing decision, and like the league has really, really come on leaps and bounds over the last number of years. But let's be realistic. I don't think the refereeing has. Like, you see, the clubs are doing everything possible to get the pitches better, the facilities better, the game experience better. Then you have the players that are doing extra training on the pitch. They're doing ice bath recovery rooms. They're doing everything possible to get themselves at the best shape possible to go and put on a good spectacle for the crowd. And we're getting let down week on week by silly refereeing decisions. And like, there comes a time where it needs to be a little bit of accountability. Like, what are they actually doing to improve themselves week to week, year on year? Because it seems to be the same mistakes that's happening all the time, and there's no repercussions, which is really disappointing. Like,
yeah, we'll probably, we should just jump into this now, really, because there was 27 cards issued across the 5 games on Friday, and in the opening night there was 35. Now the 27 doesn't include assistant coaches. The Sligo Rovers assistant coach got a yellow, Damien Duff got a yellow, Stephen Bradley got a yellow. Paul, look, there's no overnight easy fix to this. Let's talk specifically about the draw to disallowed goal, Warren Davis' disallowed goal. I just as an example, okay, there's been a lot of debate around it, like people may be a little confused about why exactly that goal was chalked off. As I understand it was encroachment. His toe was just on the line as the goalkeeper took the free kick. Okay, but like, why not just issue a short statement to clarify that, particularly if they got the decision right? This is why we did it. Like, is that opening a can of worms, or is it fair enough to expect a bit of clarity in that sort of instance?
Yeah, I feel like we had this conversation last year. I think it was with Raf. We were just crying out for a bit of, even whether it be a statement or a post-match interview or something to give people an understanding as to why the decision was made. And listen, we're all human. We all make mistakes. And if somebody came out and said, listen, I gave it for encroachment and he was either inside or outside of the box, when I look back on it, I got it wrong, I think people would actually be more accepting of that. And like, even with the King Kavanagh one as well, if a referee comes out and gives you a bit of a an understanding as to why he's made the decision, I think that puts to bed some of the conversations that take place on social media. You know, why was it given? Was it given for this or was it given for that? The rules can be complex at the best of times when I'm trying to understand either offside rules or the starting of games. But yeah, it feels like the referees do get a couple of things wrong, and the sort of lack of communications then just almost pours petrol on the fire throughout the weeks, and then the magnifying glass goes on them for the next week to see if they're making another mistake. So listen, I empathize with them to an extent because it's not an easy job. But to Richie's point, at some stage we do need the standards to increase, and the Warren Davis one, I really fell for Kevin Doherty. I still don't know to this day, Anthony, whether or not that was the correct decision or if it wasn't. You know, is on the line categorizes inside the box, or was Warren Davis outside of the box? If the referee comes out and gives us a little bit more of a picture as to why he made the decision, maybe we can kind of get a little bit more clarity on that. But yeah, referees seem to be very card happy as well. Huge number of yellow cards, particularly in the Sligo and Shelbourne game. And at times, maybe what we're just asking is to let the game flow. We don't want bookings and sending offs to kind of ruin a spectacle on a Friday night. The product is getting better. And, you know, not to lay all the blame on the referees, but as a whole within the game, we have to find ways of helping them to also get better.
Yeah, I think Virgin Media mentioned in their coverage that one of the officials had told the ref it was encroachment. And that was what it was ruled out. So just from a player's point of view, Richie, like what would have been your biggest frustration with referees? Like, is it communication, or is it not being able to speak to them about decisions? Or
yeah, it's kind of both. I don't think there's a level of respect between the referees and the players. I think the players are constantly on the refs, which I don't agree with either. I've been guilty of that when I'm playing, but it comes from a frustration and an anger that there's no communication there. Where if they turn around and say straight away, Richie, that was for encroachment, that's why. And then you can take a little step back and be like, oh, okay, no problem. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, whoever is the referee on the day. And you can kind of see it from their point of view. You see it in the rugby, and the referees have the microphones. They're talking to the captains constantly, and there's that level of respect there. Where, especially in Air League, there's not that level of communication, and that's when managers get frustrated. That's when players get frustrated, and that's when it boils over, and you get sending offs, and that's when managers get yellow cards. And as Paul said, like, we want to stamp that out of the game. We do, because we're having some great games at the moment, and we don't want to be let down by silly red cards. And look at the obvious one, Ed McGinty, that's a red card, like clear as day. Send them off. Like I'm all for that. But then you have the likes of Paul Mullen, and it's just not. It's not a second yellow. Like, you can't be getting sent off or things like that. Like, lads are working really, really hard day in, day out to go and put on a show at the weekend, and then they're getting sent off or things like that. It's just really disappointing. Like,
yeah. Just on that, Anthony, as well, the referees who are most respected and the ones that are liked most by the players, probably the wrong way of putting it, are the ones who actually talk to you on the pitch, and the ones who give you an understanding as to why they've made a decision. And then it kind of, you sit back and think, well, surely that should be the minimum, and surely that's what helps the game then flow. And typically the ones who are most respected and get the biggest games are the ones who have the best levels of communication with the players and the managers. So yeah, it's tricky. It's a really hard job to do, but at the base of it, I believe anyway, whether it's with players, whether it's managers, or whether it's kind of the general public who are watching the games, communication can definitely be improved.
Just to touch on that as well, like, I've had referees turn around to me when you'd be talking to them, you'd be giving out about a decision, and they'd put their hands on and say, Richie, sorry, that was the wrong decision. I apologise for that. That's no problem at all either. Like, as Paul said, we're all human beings. We all make mistakes. But if they just acknowledge it, where some of the refs are just, do not speak to me, I don't want to know, it's my way or the highway. Look, you can't go on like that. Like, people need to be held accountable, and people need to have a level of respect for each other that you can't have that communication backwards and forwards with.
Career change?
Huh?
Career change, maybe?
Yeah. Just now the yellow cards to everyone.
Just on shells quickly then, Richie. Like, I guess Meepo coming in gives them another attacking dimension. You think that they would probably, although they won the league last year, they probably would need to find a few more goals from different parts of the pitch as well. But can you see a change in them Is there a little evolution? Is Damien Duff tweak things to try and make them perhaps a little bit more expansive? Albeit probably didn't see that on Friday, but just generally up to now.
Yeah, do you know what I actually love about Shelbourne at the moment? They win at all costs. They don't have to dominate possession. They don't have to have 100 shots on target, so many entries into the final third. They just get the job done, they do. And if you want to win a league title, that's what you need to do. You need to go and you need to get the job done. Like Sligo had more possession, more shots on target, more cross into the box, but Shelbourne came out with the 3 points. And if you want to go and win a league, that's what you need to do. And I've really noticed that you see Damien Duff sides, they'll play against the Shamrock Rovers, who have been known to dominate the ball and dominate possession and have more shots on target. But yeah, Shelbourne dominated the game in that one possession-wise because they had a decent surface to play on. But then they can also flip it around and be comfortable defending, playing on the break with the likes of Meepo and Sean Boyd and look at they're finding a way. And if you find a way, that's the most important thing.
You think they'll sustain it again this year, Paul?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I do. I think they've got more strength and depth within the squad, and I think they've got a better setup this year, and they seem to constantly be evolving under Damien Duff. And I think just to get back to winning ways, on Friday night was important for them. The point that Richie made there is a good one. Like, they're always in games. You never or rarely will see Shells go out and get completely dominated or absolutely battered on the score sheet. They're always within games, and get back to winning ways. Like having gone 2-0 up against Sligo Rovers. Yes, Sligo pulled one back, but you're probably never really in doubt that they're going to drop points from there. They're very good at seeing out results, and if they can get back to keeping the same number of clean sheets that they did last year, Anthony, that was really the foundation of Shell's success. They're going to be a very, very difficult team to stop, because when they do get in front, they tend to take maximum points. So Damien Duff will be delighted to get them back to winning ways. It obviously tees it up now for a huge game on Friday against Pats, and it's really then you'll maybe start seeing the league table take a bit of shape. It always seems to take the first round of games for teams to find that momentum and for us to get a gauge on where teams are going to rest. But I would strongly suspect that it'll be Pats, Shells, and potentially Shamrock Rovers up around the top of the table.
Let's chat about another team up around the top of the table, Galway United. Richie, I don't know if you could say they've been a surprise package, given they did have an excellent season last year, close enough to the European places up until the last few games. But you would have had plenty of battles against John Caulfield's Cork City teams. Like, do you see a similar template out there now in what he's done with Galway?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. Like, John, he's a brilliant manager. He doesn't reinvent the wheel. He, as I spoke about Damien Duff and his Shelbourne side finding a way, that's exactly what Galway do. I think any team that go to play against Galway, they're going to be in for a difficult night. They're going to be defending crosses. They're going to be defending long balls. And Galway always seem to find a way. They're keeping clean sheets. Like, to go away from home and beat Bohemians 2-0, that's an emphatic win, it is. And John Caulfield will be absolutely delighted. But he's assembled a really good squad there. He's the likes of Greg Cunningham, ex-Ireland international. Moses Dwyer looks a real threat with his 2 goals. He seems to have a real distinctive style of play. He's a handful for everybody he is. So, listen, they're going to be a real force to reckon with this season. And it's no wonder, because not just last season, but you look at John Caulfield as a whole, as a manager in the League of Ireland, his teams have been really successful. And he has a recipe there for success, and they're going to be one to watch this year.
As you say, Richard, there's no right or wrong way to play football, but you look at Galway and you would not fancy, like, there's a few giants there. They use them well. They use them cleverly as well. They kind of tailor a game to diagonals up to Hickey and knockdowns and second balls. You're just guaranteed a tough game against them. Excuse me.
Yeah, look, I've played against them a good few times, and straight away, if you're playing in midfield, you're going to be screening the striker, you're going to be screening Hickey, and you just know I'm in for an absolute night over here. You have to get the helmet on going down to play against Galway. So, but you know what? It's their games that you have to relish. If you're the other team and you're going out with your head down thinking, we have to do this, and you probably see that in the Bohemian side at the weekend. They don't want to do the dirty side of the game. They don't. And listen, if you don't do the dirty side of the game these days, you're not going to win anything, never mind a football match.
Yeah, massive game in Galway this Friday as well. Shamrock Rovers go out there. Paul, what about Bowles? Not a great start. Things not looking particularly serene there. Do you agree with Richie? Did they just not have the hunger for that battle against Galway?
Yeah, it's starting to look like that, Anthony, because they do play well in spells during games, and at times you look at them and you think, they're decent on the eye, but there doesn't seem to be any sort of firepower in either box. They seem to give away sloppy goals, and they don't seem to carry any sort of like consistency in their play when they go forward. So yeah, I hate to be that person, but like there's a lot of pressure at Bows at the moment. Haven't won a game at Dalymount Park, Anthony, since tail end of April of last year. Yes, they beat Shamrock Rovers in a home fixture, but it was in the Aviva, and you can almost sense it anytime you go into Dalymount Park and a home fixture. There's an edginess amongst the fans. When they go behind, you can almost see the body language of the players goes down as well. So it's kind of hard to put your finger on. We talk about styles of play, and everybody wants to play this beautiful style of football and playing through the thirds, and Bows have a couple of players who can do that, but I think you need to put that to one side now and find just any way, shape or form to get over the line and get 3 points. They play Sligo at home on Friday evening, and if they don't get 3 points there, I would maybe start to worry for Bows, because it just hasn't been good enough for a long period of time, and they've 6 points on the board. 3 of them came from the opening fixture, and the investment in the players that they've brought into that squad, you have to start seeing results at the back end of that, and the squad and everybody associated with the club will know that, but it's got to start happening soon. And listen, I've actually seen a lot of them. At times you sit back and go, they're not a million miles off kind of putting things together, but while you're trying to put things together, you have to get results. Whether that be 1 point or 3 points, you have to start getting results, because another campaign where Bows are a million miles off the top teams won't go down well. They've been very patient, a lot of the fans down there, and they need to start seeing results. Whatever way, shape or form, whatever style they play, it doesn't really matter at this stage. Just got to get something.
Yeah, just a quick rattle through the fixtures this week. Drogheda United are at home to Waterford. Galway are at home to Shamrock Rovers. Pats at home to Shells. As Paul touched on there, Bohemians at home to Sligo Rovers. And Derry City welcome Cork City to the Ryan McBride Brandywell Stadium. So another really interesting night coming up, and we'll see where we are after that. We're going to let Richie head on, and thanks for your time, Richie. And we will turn our attentions now to the women's domestic game and the Ireland's Greece matches in the Nations League coming up, as we welcome Rachel Graham. And we welcome Rachel Graham to reflect on the Women's League of Ireland Premier Division action over the weekend and look ahead to Ireland's matches against Greece. They play Greece on Friday in Crete and then welcome them to Tala the following Tuesday. Rachel, I guess really we should start with the viral moment of the weekend. Ruesha Littlejohn's goal for Shamrock Rovers, amazing goal right from the tip off after they conceded. She booted it into the net from the halfway line. Brilliant goal, but I think really it sort of opens up the discussion of what she is doing for the league, or someone of her kind of profile and ability is doing for the league on a weekly basis. You looked at Moses Dyer's great goal for Galway at the weekend. I think there's like over 1 million impressions. Up to yesterday, there've been like over 1 million impressions across social media. I'm not sure what the metrics are for Ruesha's goal, but it's been shared far and wide, which means lots of eyeballs on it, and that can't be a bad thing.
Yeah, like I think at this rate she's going to have all the nominations for goal of the season the way she's playing. But look, I opened my social media on Saturday and Sunday, and the amount of pages and people who were talking about it was brilliant. We kind of had a viral goal last week as well. I seen Kate McCabe's goal was, retweeting stuff on pages, but Rush's was kind of on another level. But I think, with the good and all these eyeballs she's bringing in, it's brilliant. But there's also probably, you're always going to get a bit of negativity as well. And there was another kind of tweet that went viral from hers. I know someone kind of quoted about the tweet and about the goal and was quite negative about it. And she, not being very shy, she replied and said what she thought. So again, that brought a lot of eyes. Whether they were good or bad, I don't know. But look, her goal was unbelievable. Even think about doing it, to have the cheekiness to do it. I don't think we've ever seen that before in our league. Obviously, the wind helped; it was a big factor. But look, all the eyes we can get, the better. And she's definitely done that so far.
Yeah, I think that tweet in question was someone who questioned the quality of the league, and Russia was not shy about defending herself and indeed the league. And yeah, that, as you say, got a good few shares and likes. Ultimately, brilliant goal as it was, Galway won the match, and I mean that there's a long way to go here, Rachel, but it was another little statement for Phil Trill's team. They're not going anywhere. Are they the team to beat at the minute?
I think, well, they've had the best start so far. They've had 3 wins from 3, the only team that haven't dropped points. Now, they played one less game, but still, 100% record start. They've scored 11 goals. They've had 7 different goal scorers, so they're not relying on 1 or 2 people to get goals. They're coming from everywhere. Even the way they've won some of their games, they've gone behind, they've come back and won. And even the Rovers game, like that was a back and forth game, and they managed to tip it at the end. So look, I think they've looked really good attacking wise. The only thing, if I was kind of nitpicking at their performance, is that they've conceded in every game so far. And I think if you're looking back on any time you've won a league, it's usually, the 1-0 wins that are the ones that you really look at and say, geez, that was a big game for us. That was a big 3 points. So if you're nitpicking, I'd probably go start getting clean sheets. But I think for Galway, like they've always been a really good team. We've always struggled against them. We've always had really tough games, but it would have been their consistency against, say, the weaker teams that had let them down. They'd beat Pyne or they'd beat Athlone one week, and then they might slip up against DLR the next. So they seem to have kind of got that out of their game. Last year they were right up there, right towards the end. So I think if they can continue again to not have these slip-ups, they'll be definitely up there. And you would have probably looked at them at the start of the year and said, Julianne's retired, big loss. Jenna Slattery's moved on, a big loss. But so far they haven't seemed to miss them. But like you said, it's still really early days, but so far they've 3 wins out of 3, and they're the only team not to drop points. So they're definitely going to be up there, definitely title contenders.
Yeah, you talk about the importance of those 1-0 wins. Shelbourne got one themselves, and you were involved in that, a 1-0 win over Peamount. Tough day at the office, but a good win.
Yeah, like a really tough game. Like we always have a tough game again against them. But look, if we're probably being honest, then probably a draw might have been a fair outcome of the game. There was probably a game of not many chances. We hit the crossbar in the first half, and Emmanuel Quillen made a great save for us in the first half. But other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of chances. It was more of a battle of a game where you're winning first ball, second balls. But yeah, Rebecca Cook came on then, done really well, won a penalty for us in like around the 85th minute. And then Kate Mooney then stepped up, put it away, and then it was just about seeing the game out. But look, a really tough game. I think a draw, if I was being honest, probably would have been fair. But look, we'll take the 1-0.
How did Evie Clancy do? Or she wasn't distracted by her call-up? She was actually on media duty this morning. She's in the Ireland squad, of course, this week for the Greek games.
No, Evie, very modest person, was really surprised to be even in the Ireland squad. So I don't think anything like that will go to her head. She was excellent again for us on Saturday. Her work rate is unbelievable. She's so fit, so quick, powerful. She was really, really good. So I'm really intrigued to see how she does now with the Ireland team, because I know she's a bit nervous going in, but she's definitely well able.
Yeah, that's her first time in just over 2 years, or almost 2.5 years. In fact, she was in around the squad in November 2022. Just a word as well, Rachel, on Waterford. They had a good 4-2 win over DLR Waves. I mean, they've already added to this division. They're competitive. They'll be tough. I think you spoke before. They have players who've been in and around the league, so they've got some decent experience. Have they surprised you though? How well they've started?
Like they probably have, to be fair. But I think what I like about them, when they came in, they just done it the right way. They kind of kept their head down. They didn't put loads of stuff on social media. They just announced their manager, announced their players, and that was it. They just, were very level-headed about it. Didn't have any expectations that they were going to go and win all these games or top 3 or whatever. They just kept their head down, done their business. But so far, like I'm sure they're absolutely delighted with the start they've had. And they've been clever in games. They've picked what games they know they can attack in, and ones that they're best off sitting in deep against. So beat Sligo last week, very deserving of it. Beat DLR this week, very deserving of it. And they went ahead twice and kind of lost their lead twice in that game. So it showed a lot of character for them to come back within that game as well. And I think the girl that came on, Erin O'Brien, she scored the 2 winning goals late on. So I think as well, if you have players coming off a bench who are winning games, it's really, really good. So they've Cork next, not this weekend, the weekend after, and then they've a really tough run of games. They have Athlone, Peamount, Rovers and Galway all in a row. So that's going to be a really, really tough period for them. I think it's great that they're getting points on the board now, because I think probably in them games they're going to revert back to maybe playing that more defensive style that we've seen. But look, I think they've been delighted with their start. We've seen teams come in before and they've really, really struggled, but Waterford haven't done that.
Just before we turn our attention to Ireland, a word on Athlone, they're top of the table with 10 points from their 4 matches. Have you seen a change under Colin Fortune? Is there anything different about them this year?
I think, yeah, like I think Athlone would have always been known as a team who went back to front really quickly and very direct. And they seem to be kind of playing a lot more football now. They'll have it on the ground and play through the middle and up to the front. But I think they've recruited really well. I think Kelly Brady up front looks a really good player. Their keeper looks really, really good as well. And I think if you want to win a league, you need a good keeper and you need a good striker. And they seem to have done that. But you know, they're playing a lot more football, but they would have always been like a big, you know, physical, strong team, kind of attracted those kind of players, and they still have that element to their game as well. They're really good at battling and really strong physical. So if a game goes that way, they're well able for that. And the girl they brought in, Izzy Grove, seems to play that role for them. She'll sit in front of the back four and she's kind of breaking up a lot of play and being that really physical presence in around the middle. So look, they definitely are, I would say, more of a footballing team this year, but they also still have that kind of physical side where if you want to battle, we can battle you. So I definitely think again title challengers for this year.
Yeah, physical streak and winning experience as well. Of course, Athlone are the reigning champions. Paul, let's chat about Ireland Greece. They play in Crete on Friday afternoon. That's 3 o'clock Irish time. That game is live on RTÉ2 on the RTÉ player. They're coming into this off the back of, I think, one of their worst performances in years. That defeat in Slovenia. I guess we'll just start by maybe reflecting a little on that game. Like, what went wrong on the night, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's difficult to put your finger on exactly one thing that happened, Anthony. But you know, for Carla Ward, who's come in, she's obviously tried things and she's changed different components of, you know, players playing in certain positions, maybe a different style, maybe a different formation. And at times when you are changing things, it's not always going to work. Of course, we want her to come in and hit the ground running and get results straight away. But for whatever reason, over the first 2 games, it didn't seem to have the same sort of fluidity that maybe we've seen within the side. So I sort of feel for her in that way. Obviously there's a lot of eyes on this squad. The whole turbulence of the Colin Heady situation didn't really help her. She was preparing for those games. And when you put the result of the Slovenia game on top of things, it's been a difficult couple of weeks and couple of months. So heading into the Greece game, I think it's about getting back to basics and just being a really solid outfit and trying to get a result that can kind of give you a foundation to build upon. But from watching the game against Slovenia, I thought there was moments within that game where we just looked very stretched. You know, when we were going forward, we didn't seem to have the same sort of structure from the middle of the park, or we didn't have the same sort of protection. It was like a basketball game from a very early on within that game. And when we lost possession and when Slovenia transitioned, we seemed very exposed. So I think, you know, if we are to lend ourselves towards kind of more possession based as we go forward, you have to ensure, I guess, that you're kind of not leaving behind the good things this squad is built upon, which has been difficult to break down and being a very tight outfit out of possession of the ball. So listen, there's elements of the game to work on. I think Carla Ward is going to be tinkering with this side for a period to come, Anthony, to find the players that she's going to build the team around, the system that she's going to find that actually suits the players in the way that she wants to play. And we, you know, maybe expect that there's going to be 1 or 2 imperfect performances. There's going to be 1 or 2 imperfect results along the way. Look at Hamer Hallgrimsson with the men's team. Look at Thomas Tuchel with the English side. It takes time for change to really be successful. So I think these games are particularly important for getting us back into contention for this group. But I also think just for the general confidence around Carla Ward and amongst the squad to kind of rebound from what was a really disappointing result against Slovenia.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, Rachel, because obviously they could do with a win, 2 wins. You know, obviously they want to go back up. They want to get back up to League A, but there's also a feeling that they're in a bit of a transition. The average age of the team has been high. I think it was 28 against Slovenia. In Wales, it was nearly 30. And Carla Ward has said, and she said last week, that now is the time to blood younger players. She wants to get them in now. Is it nearly worth sacrificing Nations League promotion to start doing that process? You know, and you might have a little blip here and there, but given like your club like Evin is in the squad, and maybe like Jessie Stapleton a longer stretch. What way do you think she'll go with these two games?
I think with how the last camp went, I don't think she's going to take any risks in these games. She's going to just want to get 2 wins, get them back to winning ways. But I do think you're right. I think like we have really, really good young players like Jessie Stapleton for me. Like I think she's the future captain of that team. She's going to be a big, big player for us. I think if you can start plugging these players in, I would do it. Same with like Tyler Towell, and she's probably going to be the replacement for Rusha. Rusha doesn't probably have many years left. Saoirse Noonan's been on form for Celtic, so I think you're right. I think we need to start getting these players in, but I just think for this camp, she's going to go with her best starting 11, her most probably experienced starting 11. So I think that's what she'd do. But if we can get a chance where we can get these players on in games, I think it'd be a great opportunity for it.
Yeah, Evian is in, and as I said, she hasn't been in a couple of years. But like, would you like? Is she ready for international? Like, if they were playing England or France or Sweden, it's a different kettle of fish. But Greece, I mean,
Yeah,
she'd be okay.
I'm going to back Evian to start in the first game, just with how she's been trained and how she's been playing with us. I think she'll go in and she'll really impress, and I think she's going to start. Maybe if she doesn't start the first, and I think she'll definitely appear, and she'll definitely in a great chance to start. I mean, she kind of has everything. She can defend, she can attack. She's super fit. She's quick. I think Carla so far has been really impressed with her. I think she'll go in. I think she'll impress in there, and I'm going to back her to start in at least one of the games.
She's very complimentary about the league on a few different occasions. Like, it must be heartening for players here that they have, Eileen, that's no disrespect to Eileen, who obviously knows the league inside out and I came from that league. But sometimes when you get a manager coming in from the outside, you'd be a little worried, like, are they going to care about us? Is she going to concentrate on players placed in England or the States? But she does seem to be actively paying attention to what's in the League of Ireland.
Yeah, she definitely is. And she mentioned that in one of our first interviews that, she's going to keep an eye on the league. She's not just going to dismiss our players. And she was even up at our training session 2 weeks ago, I think, and that's when she told Avian that she was going to be in the squad. So she's definitely been very visible. She's very open to communication with all the managers. And look, she's put 2 players in her squad, and even still, like, there's probably a lot of pressure on her now in this squad. So they're not, total call-ups. These are games she wants to win, and she's calling these players up because she feels like they're the best players I have at the moment. So she even mentioned might have been 1 or 2 more only for injuries that would have been in the squad. So it's definitely, it's not empty words from her. She's definitely been there. She's visible. She's taken great respect to our league. So it's great for us. Some players might not want to go abroad. It just might not be the right time for them. And that was kind of nearly like a barrier to getting into the squad. But she seems to have broken down that barrier for this squad.
Paul, I think we'd like to see new faces coming in. I think there is a need for that. I think most people would accept that. But the age-old chat and debate is around our 2 players, Denise O'Sullivan, our 2 best players, Denise O'Sullivan and Katie McCabe. You touched on Slovenia and how open Ireland were in that game. That was a game where Katie McCabe was used centrally and quite high up the pitch. Unfortunately, we can't clone Katie, so she is a left back. She's a left back for Arsenal. She's playing at the very top level. Like, should we just accept that that's where she should be?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if she's not shifted back towards that part of the park. Anthony, even watching her last week, she looked so comfortable in that position for Arsenal against Real Madrid, and maybe it makes sense. I know at different stages we've maybe been crying out to have her in a more forward area and on the ball as much as possible to try open up defences or even strikes from distance. But for the balance of the squad, it probably helps to have her deployed from a left back or a left wing back situation, and then allow the players who are typically playing in the middle of the park to do that job. I always think, when you bring players in who aren't natural to playing in the centre and midfield, they can sometimes run out of shape and leave gaps behind, or maybe join in attacks when maybe it makes sense to actually sit in and shield what is behind you. So yeah, the balance in the squad is certainly something that Carla Ward is going to be looking at, because at times during that Slovenia game, like I mentioned, we were just very exposed, and I think when you are exposed like that, you leave yourself open to transitions and being caught out. So a little bit more stability, a little bit more balance, and maybe playing with players who are a little bit natural or more natural, who are playing week in, week out in the middle of the park, will help. And then get Katie in that fullback position or wing back position, ideally high up the pitch where she can still impact the game.
Rachel, just to finish on this, you're back in A-Bean for a start. If it was to say to you one other, or maybe whatever, 2, 3 other shouts of players who will get their shot against Greece. Is there anyone else that you think deserves their opportunity in Crete?
I think probably Caitlin Hayes deserves to go back in. I think it could be a case of maybe Patton and Hayes as centre halves and Aoife Mannion right full, because we're still kind of struggling in that full back area. Just looking at the squad, there's not, you know, out and out right backs. I think the fact she brought Chloe Mustaki in could be potential to get Katie higher up and potentially play Chloe Mustaki there, or Megan Campbell. We know Megan kind of struggles with injuries and she's very prone to picking up knocks in camp, so you kind of have to back her up. So I think the fact she brought Chloe in could be, you know, an idea that she's going to get Katie higher up the pitch. So look, we'll wait and see, but I do agree. I think Katie's a really good left back, but I think for us we need her high up the pitch. So if you can fill that left back position with a good defender and free Katie up, it'd be excellent.
And you'd play her just like as a left winger, sort of functional.
I just play her
wing.
left wing, yeah, left of the front three or left wing.
Yeah. Okay, well, we shall see what way Ireland go at it. As I said, that game kicks off at 3 o'clock on Friday. It's live on RTÉ2 and the RTÉ player. And then the home game the following Tuesday at Tallaght Stadium is also live on RTÉ2 and the RTÉ player. We're going to leave it there for this week. My thanks to Rachel Graham and Paul Corry for joining us. And we will be back again next week for more of the same. Bye-bye.
See you.
Cheers, folks.